Sorry, I had intended being there in person, but I'm having a wee issue with a cat who's at the vet's at the moment. So if I vanish, it's because the vet's called.
Thank you very much. Good morning, members. Welcome to this, the first meeting of the new Annandale and Eskdale Area Committee on the 22nd of June 2022, following the local government elections earlier in May. I would let you know at this point that we have some members physically present and some joining us via Teams. This area committee will be recorded on Teams, and this recording will be available online shortly after the finish of the meeting. Just as a matter of interest, it's the Armed Forces Week this week, and today is wear your uniform at work day today. I wasn't allowed to wear my nurse's uniform, so therefore I will come in with this one. Muting microphones and switching off their video when you're not addressing the meeting is part of the good practice guidance. And should you wish to contribute to any item, you should write "speak" in the Teams chat function, and you will be invited to speak in order about new issues. Should your question or issues be raised by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so that we deal with the business as efficiently as possible. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. And if any member has to leave the meeting for any reason, can I remind you either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time, or you could write "leave" in the Teams chat function and then join. This will allow us to monitor member presence. Before we turn to the first agenda item, I'd like to welcome all new members and those that are returning, having been re-elected to the Annandale and Eskdale Area Committee. The first item is said apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Can I ask the Clerk, Tracy Sonka, for the said apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. We've got 9 members present in total, 5 members present in person at Annan Town Hall, being the Chair, Councillor Lynn Davis, Councillor George Jameson, Councillor Dennis Mail and Councillor Caroline Wilson. And we've got 4 members present on Teams, Councillor Ian Crothers, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Marshall and Councillor Thompson. We've got one apology from Councillor Brodie, and not present at the start of the meeting is Councillor Karen Crothers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. And I confirm my agreement to the remote participation of this meeting. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? I can't see any on the function. Anybody here? No. Item 3 then is delegation to Annandale and Eskdale Area Committee, report by Head of Governance and Assurance. Our first report is for noting following the meeting of full council on 24th of May, and we are asked to note the remit of Annandale and Eskdale Area Committee, which is set out in a scheme of administration and delegations to committee and detailed in 3.2 of the report before us. Stuart, you got anything to add to this?
Nothing to add from my perspective, Chair. I don't know if Tracy has anything to add.
Tracy?
No, nothing to add, Chair. It's just for noting for the delegation.
Next member, are we happy to note the delegation?
Yep, happy to do it.
Thank you very much. We'll then move on to item number 4, which is arrangements for administration of the Annan, Lockerbie and Lochmaben, Langham and Moffat Common Good Funds, report by the Head of Community Services. This report will consider involvement of the arrangements for the administration of Annan, Lockerbie, Lochmaben, Langham, Moffat Common Good Funds. For clarity, I intend to go through the recommendations in sequence, hence I'll ask members to consider first the Annan Common Good arrangements. We'll then consider the Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good arrangements, and finally Langham and Moffat. Unless there's anything to add to the report, Tracy or Stuart, we'll move on to that. Okay, thank you very much. So turning first then to the Annan Common Good, I'm sure members have read, and Councillor Karen Crothers is now in the meeting as well. Okay. Annan Common Good, turn to the first recommendation, 2.1. Our first consideration is whether we agree to administer the Annan Common Good Fund issues via this committee, or to establish and delegate such issues to an Annan Common Good subcommittee. The remit for the Common Good subcommittee is set out in paragraph 3.5. Any comments, members? I take it this should be for the Annandale South members. Sean?
Yeah, I think the appropriate thing is to keep it as it is and continue as a subcommittee. I think there's, it also involves community council members. We also have meetings, when the fishermen are along, the half-netters, etc. And it seems to work well. We meet about 3 or 4 times a year, and we also disperse funds. So I think it's appropriate to keep it as a subcommittee of the area committee rather than actually bring the business to the area committee.
Okay. Are members in agreement that we set up the Annan Common Good? Agreed. So if agreed, we are now asked at recommendation 2.2 if we agree to incorporate the administration of all Annan Common Good business to the Annan Common Good Fund Subcommittee as detailed at 3.5 in the report. Are we happy to do so?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Do we agree to incorporate all matters pertaining to the administration of Annan Common Good into Annan Common Good Fund Subcommittee?
Yeah, I agree that it's normally the 4, so we agree the 4, and I think there's a quorum of 3 as per council standing orders. Yep,
that's fine, thank you very much. 2.3, and still regarding Annan Common Good, and turning to recommendation 2.3, which you've just suggested, Sean, can we agree the appointment of elected members to the Annan Common Good Fund Subcommittee as detailed at 3.12? The 4 ward members eligible for the appointment are Richard Bodie, Ian Carruthers, George Jamieson and Sean Marshall. And do we agree to appoint those 4 ward members?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Finally, we are asked at recommendation 2.4 to invite community representation onto the subcommittee as detailed in 3.14. Any comments from the members?
Just to agree.
Yeah, understanding that we agree that the Royal Borough of Annan Community Council will be invited to nominate 2 representatives to sit on that subcommittee if we're happy with that. Okay, that's agreed. We'll then move on to Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good Funds. Turning now to consideration regarding the Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good Fund recommendation 2.5. Our first consideration is whether we agree to administer the Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good issues via this committee or to establish and delegate such issues to a Common Good subcommittee. The remit for this committee is set out in paragraph 3.16. Any comments from members, or are we happy to administrate this from the area committee? Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. And just to say that similar to the Annan Common Good Subcommittee, the Lockerbie Lochmaben Common Good Subcommittees has worked well, and I would suggest we continue in that vein where it's delegated to the Common Good Subcommittee.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So we agree to incorporate all matters pertaining to the administration of Lockerbie and Lochmaben Good into Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good Subcommittee. That's everybody's happy with that. And still regarding Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good, and turning to recommendation 2.7, can we agree that appointment of elected members to Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good as detailed in 3.21? The 4 eligible members are Lynn Davis, Gail McGregor, Stephen Thompson and Caroline Wilson. Do we agree to appoint these members? Agreed, thank you.
Agreed.
And do members agree that the Lockerbie and District Community Council and the Royal Borough of Lochmaben and District Community Council are asked to nominate a representative each to sit on the subcommittee?
Agreed.
Yeah, good, thank you. We'll then move on to Langham and Moffat Common Good, our final Common Good funds, not so much funds but assets, to consider our Langham and Moffat, as these funds have assets but no fee income to disperse traditionally. Matters associated are brought to this committee for considerations. Do members have any comments in relation to the Langham and Moffat Common Good?
Chair, just a thought. I mean, if something like the Langham one wanted to be reinvigorated and start to operate, would that be a possibility, and start to build funds? Because I always thought it was a bit of a disaster when the old town council spent every penny because they were frightened it was going to go elsewhere at the time of, was it 1975 or sometime, whenever it happened, and left it with nothing but buildings. So is it something, and I'm not saying it could happen, but is it something that would be considered, that if there was a way of funds starting to appear there, that it could become an active common good again?
I think, and obviously this is a decision for today with regard to what's going to happen, but I think if something like that was to happen, then a report would come back to the area committee to discuss that and see if there is a chance of Langham having a common good fund. Would that be right, Stuart?
Yeah, quite correct that the area committee can at any point choose to establish a new common good subcommittee and delegate that business to that committee. That has happened recently in Upper Eskdale, where we established a Sanker common good issue to administer issues associated with that, with the common good up there. I will take an action to get a briefing back to members just around about the technicalities, I suppose, of new assets becoming common good, because it is my understanding that no new assets or funds can become what we would traditionally class as common good, and that may cause an issue if what I understand you are sort of alluding to, Councillor Mail, in that new monies or new assets could form the common good. My understanding is that is not the case, and it is the traditional assets that are deemed common good on our common good register that would be deemed that would be administered by a new common good subcommittee. But yeah, at any point the area committee can choose to establish a common good subcommittee to administer the business.
With that, Chair, agree the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Mr Stephen, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, a similar point, and just, I suppose, in relation to Moffat, common good, and it's a sort of similar type of question. I think the comfort that Stuart's provided about being able to establish a common good should the need arise, I think that's fair, and it would come back to this committee. I'm aware that a lot of work's been done on trying to establish what our common good assets are over the last few years, and more seem to turn up as time goes on, which is of great interest to local members of the community. So, however, not all of them actually generate an income as such, so there's very little to actually administer. But I think that doesn't mean that something might arise where that does happen. So I think as long as we're able to do that, should the need arise, then I'm happy to go with the recommendations. The only other one thing I would say is I think it would probably be appropriate, and I think we did discuss this at our recent review of standing orders, which was that should an item appear on the area committee agenda relating to common good for Moffat or Langham, it would probably be it would show a bit of parity if a member of their community council could be invited along to hear or contribute to that item, although they might not vote on it. So I don't know if that's something we can agree here, or if that's actually part of the decision that we're taking today. But I'd welcome any advice, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy, you want to come on that?
Yeah, Chair, if members are agreeing to 2.9, we could add an additional recommendation that should the area committee discuss any items relating to the Langham and Moffat Common Good funds, then we invite a community representative along.
If members are happy with that, can we go to the recommendation and agree them on block?
Happy with that, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Just at that point, my iPad is searching for a network now. Anyway, move on to appointments to outside bodies. Report by item 5, report by Head of Governance and Assurance, and for the final report today we're asked to agree to appoint members to outside bodies. The Council appoints to outside bodies under 2 categories: organisations that play a strategic role and require a direct appointment or nomination of a member, or local organisations which fall within a particular ward boundary and may require the appointment of a local member, and whose organisations constitution requires that the appointment must be a local member. I think the most efficient way to proceed is if we go through the outside bodies in sequence in line with the recommendations and make the required appointments one by one. Members, are you happy that I do it that way?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
So we move the recommendations. 2.1, we're asked to appoint one elected member for Annandale East and Eskdale to the A7 Action Group as detailed in paragraph 4.1, and Dennis has suggested that he would be willing to do that. Are we happy with that?
Yep.
Yep, happy.
Okay.
Agreed.
2.2 is to appoint all 11 elected members to the Chapel Cross site stakeholder groups as detailed in paragraph 4.2. Happy to do that?
Yep.
Yep.
Agreed.
2.3 to appoint 2 elected members for Annandale East and Eskdale ward to the Eskdale foundations as detailed in paragraph 4.3. There was some discussion about some issues within Langham earlier on between the officers and myself. And we will take that through the Eskdale Foundation as the charity that's actually supporting that particular thing. And I would suggest that Karen and myself, as we've been there the last 5 years, would be the 2 elected members for Annandale East and Eskdale ward. Are we happy with that?
Yeah. Chair, I would agree to that as the other member for there, because as I chair the Langham Alliance, this would be a conflict, and a conflict. I'd rather have a partnership than a conflict. So.
Thanks for that, Dennis. Are we happy with that, everybody else?
Agreed.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Agreed.
Thanks, Archie.
We've asked, at 2.4, we've asked to appoint 2 elected members from Annandale North Ward to the George Hunter Trust as detailed in paragraph 4.4. Now, there was a bit of a competition on this one. Stephen, Gail and Caroline have put their names forward. I would suggest, because I'm sort of looking at emails and things like that coming in, Gail, you want to come in on this one?
Chair, absolutely. I'm quite happy if Stephen and Caroline want to go on this one. I just didn't want it not to be populated.
That's great, Gail. Thanks very much for that. That saves a lot of toing and froing and things like that. All right, so we're happy to appoint Stephen and Caroline to the George Hunter Trust. Okay, with 2.5 is to appoint the 4 elected members of Annandale North Ward to the Lockerbie and Syracuse University Scholarship Trust, as detailed in paragraph 4.5. Happy to do so?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. 2.6 to appoint 2 elected members of Annandale North Ward to the Lockerbie Trust, and the 2 names I have for this is Gail and Lynn. Are we happy with that? Yep.
Agreed.
Okay. To appoint 3 elected members of the Annandale North Ward to the Samuel Elliott Bequest as detailed in paragraph 4.7, and I have Gail, Lynn and Caroline for that. Are we happy with that?
It's fine with
Agreed.
me.
2.8 to appoint 2 elected members to the Dumfries Educational Trust, and the 2 names I have for that is Gail and Lynn. Are members happy that we've agreed the recommendations in this report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay,
Well
thanks
done,
very much.
Archie. Consensus is broken out.
Sorry, Gail?
I said, well done, Archie. Consensus.
Yeah, hopefully we'll work in the future that way as well, Gail.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have no urgent business, so that concludes the meeting. Could I thank you all for your contributions today, and just thinking back to the area committee meetings that Stephen chaired the last few months. It usually is about this amount of time that we actually hold them anyway, so thanks very much everybody for your input today, and I'll see you at the next one, and I'll close the meeting at that. Thank you.